believe this. Thank you, George, for recording it. This is the first meeting of the 2023 year for the Columbus Organizing Together Collaborative, which includes our primary partnerships of the Housing Authority, the Columbus Police Department, and our missing folks, the Columbus Public Library and Goodwill. The Southern Anti-Racism Network is kind of the anchor organization for this collaboration. But the other agencies are the important anchors for our 3-point priority: affordable housing, education equity, and public safety, public health. We generally have parents here who are involved with SPICE, and Kareem Moore has certainly been highly involved with SPICE. He's also a videographer, and he does that work for the Southern Anti-Racism Network and our projects. But he's also a parent, and I see his lovely little girls pictured there. So welcome everyone to the first meeting of the year. Could we start with you, Carla, and you tell everyone who you are, where you work, and your role there?
My name is Carla Godwin. I am the Resident Service, MTW and Resident Service Administrator with Columbus Housing Authority. So
thank you.
Pretty much over the resident program and our MTW program.
Thank you. And that includes all the residence councils at the different locations.
Yes, that falls under our department.
Yeah, well, when we get to reports, Carla, we'll be looking forward to hearing an update from you. I heard that my friend Brandy, who answered the phone at the main office, is now working in management at Warren Williams. And that sounds very exciting. So I want to hear all the news, particularly about Warren Williams, Elizabeth Cady, Wilson, and Farley, because those are projects that we connected with, communities that we connected with as we were trying to build SPICE over the past 2 years. So Assistant Chief Joyce Dent Fitzpatrick of the Columbus Police Department, would you introduce yourself and say a little bit about your responsibilities?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Joyce Fitzpatrick, and ma'am. Hello.
I just said good morning.
Oh, good morning. Good morning. And I apologize for not having my face on here, but I'm walking right now, and I'm trying to do something in the building. So I will, when I get stationary, I'll put my face up. But I'm the Assistant Chief for Administrative Services, which encompasses the training division, recruiting, and desk services, 911, the heartbeat of the police department. And I facilitate the community outreach for our department and do the SALT, Citizens and Law Enforcement Together program, and the Pastors Academy, which we are currently taking applications for. So if you need to get involved with something with the police department, just let me know. I'll send you the link and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, that is so important that you're here, because community policing and communities and police together is what we need in Columbus, given the start to this new year we've been having. We've lost quite a few lives already this year. So Kareem Moore, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kareem Moore, and my business is Take That Media. And just like Ms. Elamine said, so lovely. I'm my total involvement in it is ideally is to document it and make sure that we can spread it out to the world just as fast and frequent as we can.
Well, say something about your girls.
Oh, I am a father. As what you see is the two. I haven't put my makeup on yet, so I figured you might want to see them instead of look at me. But I am a father of three, 27 and 10. Um, and they all go to Britt David. Well, excuse me, two go to Britt David, and one actually is out of school right now. And that's them. That's us. And of course, I'm married for 11 years. Since I mentioned the kids, I gotta mention the wife. Thank you.
Yeah, let's give the wife some credit in here because those little girls, they are so good, and we know they're great because they go to Britt David. Well, I'm Teresa Elamine, and I'm the founder and board chair for the Southern Anti-Racism Network. And we've been organizing in Columbus for 12 years, building these projects around education equity in particular. And recently, during this pandemic, we started to really see the crisis in affordable housing and in public safety. So we started this collaboration of Columbus organizing together. So George Friday is going to introduce herself. Then she's going to show the 2-year chart that we've been working on with Columbus organizing together, so we can review that and start thinking about what the next 2 years might be like.
Good morning, everyone. I'm George Friday. I live in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I'm the person who sets up your meetings and hosts. And it's an honor to know you all and be a fly on the wall to hear what's happening in Columbus, Georgia. I'm going to put up the chart now. Can you see it? Is it big enough?
Sorry, I was talking while I was muted. But George, could you do me a favor and read the goals that we had for the period November 2020 to November 2022?
Achieve clarity on equity versus equality. Increase collaborative partners. Parent participation committees in housing authority properties.
Thank you. Now, the collaborative partners are listed there. So we've developed, all of these folks have at some point, groups at some point have attended these meetings over the past 2 years. We've done quite a bit of action research to help, and we've held 2 parent summits, one on November 10th of 2021 and one on November 12th of 2022, which were both attended by the mayor and the superintendent. So those are some of our major accomplishments. Well, the MOU between the Housing Authority and the Southern Anti-Racism Network to connect with parents in the different communities, that started in November of 2020. So basically, this was really about that, building the relationship with the Housing Authority of Columbus. because that's where the highest concentration of children and high poverty neighborhoods are, because people who have the benefit of living in the housing authority properties get to pay rent that is unlike the rent that's killing us out here in the private sector, so to speak. And so that's something we'll be talking about in a little bit more detail. But I wanted to share the importance of the housing authority in this whole focus of affordable housing, education, equity, and public safety, because high poverty, low opportunity areas make life difficult when it comes to getting the things that we need. And thanks to the Housing Authority and its programs, affordable housing is somewhat of a reality for people who live in housing. But we'll hear more about that from Carla. But we did have quite a few achievements with the crime prevention department, in that we received several grants over the period that we were working together. We stopped taking grants from crime prevention because we wanted to try to look more towards building from the bottom up in the community and getting greater community support. So SARN has taken on that responsibility of fundraising to support SPICE in particular. So Carla, Assistant Chief Kareem, do you have any questions about the chart? Because the 2-year period has come to an end, but the work cannot end. So we are going to be starting something where we're starting to look at maybe March 2023 to March 2025. So we have a couple of months to think about what it is that we need to do over the next 2 years. So that's a proposal that we can discuss perhaps at a meeting in a couple of months, because we've been trying to meet every couple of months instead of every month. We started out meeting every month, but our next meeting will probably not be until March. So let me stop talking, Assistant Chief.
Okay, I'm looking at it, and I did attend your summit back in November, I believe it was.
Yes.
I got there late because I had 2 other appointments that day involving outreach, and I'm looking at what you do in Warren Williams. I've been a part of that for the better part of the year, and Elizabeth Kenny, the prevention board meetings you have. I would say continue with that, Ms. Elamine, because that did seem to give us some insight from the police perspective on what the residents out there wanted us to do and what we could do. You had ambassadors who were actually taking initiative to see what was going on with their neighbors and to make sure that we were informed of what was going on, especially when we had, excuse me, when we had shootings that they were concerned about, and just letting them know that we were here for them. So I would say continue that, and to make sure that we are involved in it, and give me a heads up. You're very good. You're due diligent about giving me a few days before or a week before your meeting so I can get it on my roster, and my secretary will put it on there. I did look at, I did go to the Farley homes too. So I've been to all of yours for the last year. with the exception, I think, of Wilson. I don't recall going to Wilson last year.
Well, thank you so much for that, Assistant Chief. This is a good segue into Carla. I hope Carla can stay with us for a few minutes longer. I know she's having a busy day, but Carla is in charge of all of those communities and the residence councils. So she is in charge of resident services. And so what my goal was in the 2-year period was to get organizations going, which are commonly known as residence councils. And the residence councils would then in turn participate in some of the work that we're doing with the school district. Based on the children needing greater support. And so that process of the residence councils being established is a process that the Housing Authority is in charge of, and they were gracious enough to allow the Southern Anti-Racism Network and MOU, where we got to come and meet with the residents at the different properties. But the difficulty of getting a real core, which I think of as 10 people, 10 residents, to be a part of a residence council in order to have a real way of communicating with the community. See, when I did this work in Durham, North Carolina, the Durham Housing Authority, you had to go through the residence councils. And so the residence councils here are just starting to come together. So Carla, could you unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about how things are going with the establishment of the residence councils and in general, the work that you're prioritizing?
Yes, ma'am. We do have several resident councils. Some are stronger than others, especially at our elderly property, but Warren Williams has a good resident council and we have gotten one started, still needing work. So the participation is not high, but at Elizabeth Canty and Warren Wilson, Farley, we're still, trying to get it started there as well. But we have, a lot of partners that helps when trying to do activities and different things for our kids and trying to get more mothers and parents involved. We also, have a security task force that they have a meeting every other month that our residents are invited to, along with law enforcement that indicates so they can, bring up any crimes that's going on at our properties to them at that time, and security of needing what they're needing and needing more. But that's something that, that we have for our residents as well. Like I said, we're constantly, encouraging the resident council and hopefully building more upon that with our family service workers.
Yes, and it's so important because communities that are organized and the housing authority communities are so important because they really are communities where people are concentrated together and they get to be neighbors and support each other. So what we're doing, Assistant Chief, with the SPICE program is we're spreading out to other private housing properties so that we could have the housing authority relationship in addition to the thousands upon thousands of other apartment residents throughout the city where they deal with the same issues of public safety and children and education. So we're just trying to get a little bigger. But the Housing Authority has the resources and the staff at each of their properties that allows for the residents to actually have services, and they have computer labs. So the Housing Authority is a really important place for thousands of families that are struggling in many ways. But we want to be able to continue the collaboration now that we know, because I do know Ashley at Elizabeth Canny, and I know she's young and smart. You know, we have these young folks in their 20s and 30s are the parents that I've met. So I do hope to continue with them. So what we want to talk about now is the crisis of affordable housing. So Carla is going to be speaking at the meeting on January 26th, which will be at the Columbus Public Library auditorium. So she and I believe the person's name is Ricky Miles. So is that still true, Carla, that the two of you will be able to join us on January 26th?
I will definitely be there. Ricky is possible. So we'll know more next week.
Well, see, what you were saying today in saying what you do in the residence councils, but also hearing about the affordable housing programs that the Housing Authority has. You know, talk about the RAD, which I can never remember what the RAD stands for, but to talk about that.
It stands for rental demonstration. Let's see, RAD, RAD, rental assistant demonstration.
Yes, and so it's like not public housing. So explaining the difference between public housing, which Elizabeth Canny is public housing, and I understand Warren Williams is still public housing, but Farley and Wilson are RAD properties. So that's what we want you to do on the 26th, is to kind of explain the difference in that and how the rent is computed for those different properties.
Yes, ma'am. A lot of the rent is calculated, I think, the same. I don't do rent calculations, but the main difference really is a matter of a funding stream that HUD gives us, because HUD gives, instead of giving it money through the public housing and giving you capital needs, they just give it to you all in one type of a payment through a RAD, which is normally a Section 8 voucher for that development versus being a public housing. So really, the major difference is the funding stream.
Yeah, that would be good to, because we've invited some other speakers. The Urban League has an affordable housing program, but it tends to lean towards home ownership as an alternative to renting. So they'll talk about that. But we may have someone from the Sheriff's Department because I submitted an open records request to the municipal court and to the Sheriff's Department. And I learned that the landlords had filed 1,280 dispossessory demands in 2022. And of those 1,280, the Sheriff's Department actually evicted 1,202. So can you imagine all those people with their stuff being set out in Columbus? It is truly a crisis. So getting those open records, I asked for them by zip code. So 31907 had 334 evictions of those 1202. 31904, I think, had the second largest, which would be, I believe Wilson Homes is in 31904, and then 31903. So I had asked for the evictions in the apartment complex because I noticed a real uptick. So it was like this year alone in my single apartment complex, they had filed for 64 evictions, and there are only 200 units here. So the crisis of affordable housing is directly connected to the poverty in the community. So at the city council meeting, Toya Tucker in District 4 said that we need to try to figure out a way to institute some programs, including rent control. So there's going to be a major effort over the next couple of years around improving the situation with the gentrification. My apartment that I was paying $705 for, the rent shot up to $1,000 this year. So these are the things that people are going to be coming out from the community talking about, because I'm going to get the public service announcement out today, Carla, so that it'll be aired on the radios, stations, and everywhere about the meeting at the library. So hopefully we'll get a good sizable number of people there so we can build the movement to support affordable housing. And so we'll be lifting up the Housing Authority as a place where the rent seems to be fair, from what I've heard. But what's going on out here in the other world is really crazy. And so we'll be talking about how crazy it is. So Kareem Moore, this is what you'll be recording in that Take That Media. There'll probably be some other news media folks stationed there, but you get there a few minutes early so you can get your place, so you can set up, because it'll be on the stage where the speakers will be, and there'll be people speaking from the floor in the audience, telling their stories. So that's the big thing we have coming up this month that involves Carla, probably someone from the Urban League, the captain over the evictions for the Sheriff's Department is invited, and Toya Tucker, who's a person who's calling for rent control from the city council, she's also invited to speak. So we're looking to start an affordable housing alliance where we can find ways for landlords and tenants to work together so that we can make our community safe as well as affordable. And so it's going to be important. Assistant Chief, if you could be there to talk about the police commitment to safety in all of these communities where, unfortunately, quite a few people have been lost their lives. So it's January 26th, and I sent you the flyer on the email, but it's January 26th at Columbus Public Library, and it starts at 6 p.m.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Elamine. I'm gonna get ready.
Thank you. So if there are no questions about the affordable housing, we do need to hear a report from Assistant Chief Dent Fitzpatrick, because I thought I was going to lose my mind the first weekend of the year, hearing all these lives being lost, and that's continued on through this second weekend of the year. And so we're really not having a good start to the new year when it comes to the loss of lives due to homicides or murder. So can you explain, Chief Fitzpatrick, what you think is going on?
Well, I can tell certainly that's not the way we want to start off our new year, but unfortunately, that's what we have. I can tell you that the men and women of the Columbus Police Department, although we cannot prevent a murder, we have officers in areas that are hot spots for us, that we're getting information from the residents. And that's when we know where we can start putting more units there to try to circumvent murders. Unfortunately, people do not have conflict resolutions, communicative skills, and they take to the streets with guns. With that being said, the homicide unit is actively investigating the murders for 2023 as well as the unsolved ones for 2022. So there's not a lot I can tell you about an ongoing investigation. If anybody out there has information, we are certainly open to it. Whether you think it's just hearsay, it may be something that we need to hear, that we'll say it, that we're not getting this information. Again, with our community bridge and outreach programs, this is where we're actually going out into the community to ask people, if you see something, say something. And the biggest pool we have is with our churches. Last month, I went to a church right before Christmas, Miss Outlet, Pastor Outlet's church. And her prayer was that for everybody to put down the guns the week of Christmas. And we had a great prayer visual for that. And she made it known that she was not going to tolerate it and that she was going to expose whoever was out here selling the guns, drugs, and everything else. And a lot of the pastors at her event and community leaders, as well as just residents, confirmed that they would do the same. Unfortunately, 2 days after Delta Outlet put on that program, and I was there and I was part of a prayer circle, we had a murder. And I actually texted her and said, hey, continue to pray, continue to call people out on what they're not telling and what they're not exposing. We need that. And that's just one of the things that we've done. But as far as the murders, we're trying to educate the community, especially our younger people. You have to put down a gun and pick up a telephone and start talking to each other, or pick up your communicative skills and start talking to each other about your dislikes and grudges. And until we do that, and we holding parents responsible too. They see these kids coming in at certain times at night. They see them wearing clothes that they didn't buy. They see them driving vehicles that they know that they did not buy and cannot afford, but they're not telling anything. They'll just say, well, I can't do anything with them. This morning, 13-year-old, I heard it on the radio. Mother couldn't make her go to school, and you call the police. A lot of it is parenting. And we try to step in and bridge the gap with our communities and our programs, but we also have to hold parents responsible for leading your children as well. So as far as the murders, all I can tell you is that we're working on them. We appreciate anything and all information that you can give to us. If you want to remain anonymous, we have the tip line. We have a web page, if you computer savvy or not, just go to www.columbusga.org/police, and there's a tab up there for submit a tip that you want to tell us about. It could be not just a murder, it's submit a tip. If you know somebody has a burglary ring or a theft ring or a shoplifting ring or anything of that nature, you can let us know and we can get somebody to look into it. And I hope that answered your question, Ms. Ellerman.
Well, it's very important because we know that the culture of a community, here's Sister Deidre, the culture of a community is based on how much loving and caring is going on in that community. Because that sad story you just told of a mother who couldn't get her 13-year-old to go to school, and instead of calling the girl's auntie or somebody, she calls the police on her own child. See, this madness of thinking that the police can solve every social problem is a problem, because the police should not be called to get your child to go to school. So we have to have greater community support. So you call your church member, you call your pastor, because that's the kind of help your child needs. You don't need to be putting your child in the prison pipeline, thinking that your child, you basically saying to your child that your life is getting ready to go, and it's probably correct. You headed for a life of crime if you don't go to school, graduate from school, because these children drop it out at 16. They're the ones who are out here shooting up the place. So that's the kind of message we have to get across. It's about the mental health, the social concerns of poverty, so that children who are tired of being poor and they get recruited by some adult to sell their drugs. Because I had a couple little nephews over 30 years ago when I lived in Atlanta who got recruited by grown folks to sell their drugs. That's a big part of what's going on here. And when you see that money coming in and you know you haven't had enough to eat, it looks real good to you. So we have a real case of organized crime that involves juveniles in this community. And
Miss
until we get,
Miss Elamy, if you don't mind, I thank you for bringing up the mental health piece. I know we hadn't met in a while, but we do have a mental health counselor that's on board with the Columbus Police Department. She works for New Horizons, and she's a certified clinician. So when we have a mental health call, she responds with us, and it has really broken down a lot of our time on calls that we can't handle. We can't handle bipolar disease. We are certified CIT, certified crisis intervention trained, but the clinician part of it is through our MH1 person, mental health person. And she actually takes over and get the people committed or get them to a safe place. And they are very responsive to her instead of that badge. And you are making a great point. Sometimes it's not a police matter. It's a mental health matter. And they need someone who can talk to them for an extended period of time. Police officers are running from call to call, and we're doing crime. And just because you have a mental health episode, that is not a crime. That's a mental health issue. And we have to put people in place to handle mental health issues. And not going to school, you're right, it's not a crime. It's not a crime to the sense that police need to be called. It's a parenting problem. So if the child doesn't go to school, it becomes a civil liability to the parents, where we can actually arrest the parent. But at 13, and you can't make a child get up and go to school, you pretty much lost control of your house. And
well, the thing of it is, Assistant Chief, working directly with the school district, I know that they have a great truancy program.
Yes, ma'am.
And so parents are guilty of truancy, and they get called to account for that when the child is under 16. So it's that sort of thing that the community, that's what we're collaborating about, because those of us in the community who know those rules and work with that every day need to be a part of this. That's what we're talking about, building the village it takes to raise the children so that they won't be out here shooting up the place. And so on that note, I want to ask Deidre Whittlesey to introduce herself because she works with the Department of Family and Children's Services. And so we're on her street right now. So Deidre, can you unmute to introduce yourself?
Hello.
Deidre, I can't understand
My
you.
name
What's
is
going on?
Deidre Whittlesey, and I do work with DFACS. I walk outside.
Yeah, because your connection was sounding a bit shaky. Deidre is working, of course, but I do want to say, in addition to Deidre working with families and children to keep them safe, Deidre is also the vice chair of the board of the Southern Anti-Racism Network, and we have a board meeting tonight. So we'll be talking about this meeting today and kind of what we're going to be doing going forward on the 26th. Is there anything else that we need to bring up today besides looking towards March to set up a meeting in March? We usually like to meet after the 15th of the month. Is it possible we could look at March and see if there's a date that works for most of us who are here? Today is Tuesday, which seems to be a really hard day for people. So I want to propose that we meet on Thursday, which is March 16th. Can we tentatively agree to meet on March 16th at 11 a.m.? We always meet for 1 hour or less at 11 a.m. on a weekday morning. And I'm proposing that our next meeting, we still communicate with each other between meetings, of course, but to bring, we'll probably have some new participants coming out of the work we'll be doing over the next couple of months. But March 16th, does that work? Okay, everybody's muted. So we're
It
getting
works
ready.
for me, Miss Elamy. I'm fine.
Okay, that works for you on at 11 a.m. So I'm turning on my camera. So everybody, if you can, turn on your camera, because we're gonna say so long for now until we see we'll see everybody on January 26th. There you are, Carla. Good to see you. Happy New Year. And Deidre is probably at work in a meeting. And we've seen Assistant Chief Fitzpatrick. So we're going to put on the date tentatively because Jonathan will be back by then, right, Carla?
Yes, ma'am. He should be back by then.
Okay, so we're going to say tentatively March 16th at 11 a.m. And then we'll see each other on the 26th at the library. I know you're having a busy day, Carla, so see you on the 26th. Thank you.
You're welcome. Y'all have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.